What is up, guys? My name is MipZ and welcome to this champion reveal video. So I thought this would be kind of fun to do, and if you guys enjoy this, please do tell me in the comments section, so I'll make sure to do them like going forward. But the idea is basically just that I'll go through the material that we have on the new champion Rell so far. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty interesting. I think without further ado, we'll just kind of jump straight into it. If you are new here on the channel, then make sure to go ahead, subscribe down below, smash that like button if you like it, and yeah, if you want to see me live stream, then I stream every single Friday on twitch.tv/MipZ_live. So yeah, I'll see you guys there on Fridays, but let's just kind of jump into this one. So the new champion looks pretty cool, to be honest. I'm a big fan of the art here. I like that she also has kind of a mount. This of course reminds me of Kled, a champion that I've played quite a lot. Really enjoy him. Actually think that we'll do a guide pretty soon on him. Anyway, what I'm thinking of this video is basically we'll go through this material. Let's just start with the first one here, which basically just says champion insights of Rell, the full metal inquinist. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Inquinist. I think this is basically just means that she has like, yeah, her metal things that is like a prosthetic thing that, yeah, I don't know. I think that's what it means. I might be wrong. Anyway, let's just kind of read this through. Noxious has a problem. No, it's not just a Demarcius penchant for spinning nationalists, the creeping threat of the Black Mist, or the ever-increasing number of demons in Runeterra. Their problem is closer to home, and it's metal as fuck. Mordekaiser is inevitable, and Noxious must stop at nothing to defeat him. But what does that look like? Are they willing to throw aside all morals to construct their ultimate weapon? And what happens when it turns against them? Rell happens, and Noxious is not prepared. Fueled by rage. When the dev team first started working on Rell, they had two things to go off: dark support and tank. That's not quite enough to make a character, so they did what anyone would do: turn to the artist. We really love the idea of creating a tanky support. It'd been a long time since we'd made one. Brown was actually the last, says senior concept artist Justin Riot Elbers. But unlike Braum, we wanted her to have a darker past and personality. I explored a few different options, but everyone was really attached to the metal bending concept. After we landed on that, we just decided where Rell came from. And this is pretty cool. I actually really like this, and I think that's like, it's kind of fun to think of that Braum is actually, yeah, the last like tanky support that's been added, because we've had a lot of other new supports come to the game, like Rakan, etc., that are not really tanky, but yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I actually haven't thought of that for a while, but I think this is really nice. I actually thought, looking at this first, I thought it was a bruiser or a top laner, and maybe it also will, maybe it primarily will, I don't know, but it seems like they at least tried to make it around playing as a tanky support. When darkness, strength, and armor are involved, there's one area of Runeterra that just really works: Noxious. It's a land of inclusivity, tolerance, and opportunity, at least to those willing to put aside ethics for a chance at power. The Black Rose, who runs Noxious clandestine operations, are interested in some horrible things to further the Empire's expansion and power. Explains narrative lead Jared Carnival Knights Rosen. Demon calling, void magic, resurrection, and controlling dead gods. A little of this and a little of that. And one of the things this group of crabby 1000-year-old artists cats have discovered is a sigil magic, which has the ability to rip the magic out of living things and then forcibly put it into something else. So when the team was working for a way to explain Rell's dark past, they focused on the dark side of Noxious. I'm really curious once we get to the abilities, how we'll actually see this kind of chain together and how she actually works. I'm actually really excited for this champion, even though I'm not a support main. Like, I think this is really cool, and even if it becomes mostly a top laner, I think this is a champ that will definitely see a lot getting played. And I could, like, just from her visual aspect, like, I'm thinking, could this also maybe be a jungler? Could she be played jungle? We'll see. Anyway, I might go to the PB as well and do some gameplay on it for you guys if it's there yet, and if it's possible to even choose the champion, because I'm really curious about this champion. Born to an agent of the Black Rose and a ranking Noxian soldier, Rell's magic manifested at an early age in the incredible rare form of pheromancy, or metal manipulation. Perfect for combating Mordekaiser and revenge attached to metal. So her parents did what any truly patriotic Noxian would. They sent her to academy for magical kids to be turned into weapons for Noxius. Oh. Rell spent years at this facility, forced to fight the students under the guise of learning from one another to improve, and she defeated every single one. Like, honestly, that gave me like a little bit of goosebumps. She just sounds really cool. Okay. But as she bested the other students and grew increasingly powerful, they began to disappear. Torn from her life, just as the instructors tore the magic from their bodies and implanted it into Rell, their ultimate weapon. Oh my god, this is so cool. The magic from the other kids is placed into Rell with the sigil magic, which empowers her own latent powers, explains Riot Herb, but the process is incredibly painful for both Rell and the other students. I forced a lot on adding the sigils to her arms, especially the one that holds her lance, to make sure it's clear when playing her. I wanted the pain that she underwent to be clear to players so they understood her past. When Rell defeats other students, they either die from their wounds or the staff tears the magic from their bodies to implant into Rell. This is honestly sounds insane. And that process leaves them null in a zombie-like state, devoid of magic and emotion. But Rell never signed up for this. She doesn't want to fight her friends, the only ones who ever showed her compassion and love. And once Rell finds out she's been lied to and forced into harming others, she's furious at everyone and everything. And she tears the entire place down. Anger is such a hard emotion to emphasize, and we want to make sure players could understand where Rell was coming from, all of the pain she's gone through, the heartbreak, says narrative editor Alan Kulani Stimmel. Yeah, honestly, all of these editor, artist names, etc. I'm sorry, I'm completely gonna screw them up, and I'm probably also gonna screw up some of the words throughout this, but I'm hoping you guys get out like just kind of a little bit from it. It's also one of the reasons why we decided to make Rell young. It's much easier to understand and relate to a young person's fury. Most teenagers are filled with angst, and that's without discovering their life has been fueled by lies. Ooh. This is where we meet Rell. She's free from the facility. The Black Rose got what they wanted. Noxia's greatest weapon is finally unleashed. Pheromancy Unbound. I wanted to make Rell the tankiest tank the world has ever seen. I had this idea of a heavily armored character who surrounded the ground she walks on, making the earth beneath her collapse from her might, says game designer Riot Stashu Shellock. Unfortunately, that's hard to display in League, and still needed to make sure she thematically felt like she was manipulating metal. I was looking for neat ways to map her thematic powers into her gameplay to make her feel powerful and hard-hitting without feeling like a mage. That meant the team needed to understand what exactly pheromancy is, how does it work, what does it look like, and how do you make sure, or how do they make sure Rell feels like a tank, not a metal slinging mage. I wanted to make sure that Rell visually reads as a tank, says Riot Herb. When I was designing her armor, which I made from metal from the school, I wanted to make sure it read that she's incredibly strong and powerful. The middle part of her armor is bulky and dark, so to balance this, I gave it a dress-like silhouette, and that's what it looks really cool, actually. All right. Rell crafted her armor using fermency. It acts as sort of a magnetic field that allows her to control latent metal in the ground, metal that touches her directly, or any that comes close to her. What she can't do is reach hundreds of meters across a battlefield to pick up a single person and crush their armor. Because Rell needs to be close to her enemies to manipulate their armor, and she plays as a tank, I needed to make sure that her gameplay fitted that. Riot Dasher explains, her ultimate became the best way to illustrate that particular tank fantasy. She became supercharged with power and enemies in her vicinity gets pulled in, but it doesn't interrupt their cast or channels. But that still doesn't explain what fermency looks like in League. How do you make something invisible clear in a game that requires clarity? When I started on Rell, I didn't really have any idea how to get fermency clear effects. It's funny, I actually started by looking at magnets. Shares VFX artist Kyle, Riot Prisma Prime, Valentin. I don't really understand how they work, but I know that the way they pull is incredibly strong, and it's often portrayed as a distortion in the electron molecules in the air. After some tinkering with different effects and forms of light manipulation, Riot Prisma Prime landed on something he felt was uniquely Rell. Chromatic, how do you say that? Aberration. By focusing on color distortion, Riot Prisma Prime made it appear as if light bent differently around Rell when she cast her abilities, and by adding her highlight colors of red and yellow, it added more earthy, ragey element that demonstrated her personality. Like, honestly, this is so cool. This is so freaking cool. Oh, there's some sound effects here. Let me just grab my headset real quick and let's just listen to whatever this is. That's pretty neat. Let's just hear it once again. You can just, it feels kind of earthy and metally at the same time, actually. That's really cool. Let's listen to. Oh my god, this is awesome. All right. While fermency isn't a new concept in fantasy or sci-fi, it's new to Runeterra and needed to be audible differently from other forms of magic, explains sound designer Darren Ryadomowitz Ludwig, and it should be distinguishable from other metal wielding champions like Mordekaiser and Leona. So I used a bunch of different methods and sources like grinding metal, dry ice, and a lot of processing to make this metal sound fluid. And it does. It sounds awesome, honestly. Really good job. All right, a knight and her steed. One of our goals with Rell was to hit on the armor and mounted knight thematic, says Riot Stasher. And because I wanted her to be so tanky, I needed to figure out how it would work with her gameplay. We wanted her to be this unstoppable, slow-moving tank, but that kind of feels bad in League because the game relies heavily on movement, positioning, and dodging. But I couldn't stop thinking of that idea, and I needed to find a way to make it palatable. I have no idea if that's the correct way of saying that word, by the way. But yeah. I'm guessing that palatable probably means to like find a way to make it work. All right, because Rell has the ability to manipulate metal to her will, she clearly wouldn't spend all day walking around launching heavy armor everywhere, right? She'd need something that freed her up to move faster. Finding the right mount for Rell ended up taking more work than the team expected. It couldn't be too cute because it's Rell we're talking about. She's on a mission to hunt down the facility at the academy and slay them where they stand. She's not going to ride a rainbow unicorn to do that, but anything that was too otherworldly wouldn't give the clear mounted knight read. Totally makes sense. Super happy they didn't go with the unicorn. I explored a few options for the appearance of Rell's mount. It's just Riot Herb. I tried a lot early on, like abstract middle figures or basilisk, but none of them worked because they were visually confusing. So I decided to stick with the horse, but make it more metal and hollow. This way it's clear that it isn't the type of horse you'd fit carrots to. Yeah, definitely not look like one. Rell's form swapping let the team explore two very unique gameplay fantasy: the tankiest tank and the mounted knight. Because she can swap between these two forms on a cooldown, of course, they were free to lean hard into each. When Rell dives the backline and dismount, she moves incredibly slow, but has more armor and magic resist. She's looking for the fight and she won't run away from it. When Rell makes the decision to enter the fight and dismounts, she's stuck in that form for a while, Riot Stasher shares. The upside is that we made her really tanky, so she can survive for a bit, but she's not unkillable. She's actually got the nickname the Id Horse during playtests. Wow, yeah, that does not sound very convincing. The Id test. She can get to any fight on her horse, but she's fully committed to it once she dismounts. This sounds a lot like Kled, just like Kled is also let's go full in. But that's okay. Players will figure it out, and once they do, it'll feel amazing. I'm hoping it will. I'm really looking forward to playing this champion. But there was a small hiccup in the mounting fantasy. The team wanted to hit. It was hard to animate, like really hard. Making Rell's mounting animation feel good was really challenging. The horse is the avatar of rage and magnetic powers, and I wanted it to be this cinematic moment for players, so it wouldn't match the fantasy of her riding into battle. So it would match the fantasy of her riding into battle, says senior animator Dave Helsby. Each individual piece of armor needed to be animated, and it needed to be visually clear while still delivering on that exciting moment. I spent a lot of time visually lining up each piece of metal from the horse to her bipped armor form. There's another reason for wanting Rell to embody the mounted knight thematic. Remember the Knoll children from the academy? She certainly does. At the end of the day, it could be easy to look at Rell and think that she's just angry, full of hate, or out of revenge. And while I'm not saying that's not true, her ultimate goal is much softer than that, says Carnival Knights. She commiserates with these children more than she can with anyone else, and she'll stop at nothing to save them. In many ways, she's a gallant knight. She wants to defend those who can't, starting with the other kids. Oh my god, this is so cool. The life lost. Rell could have been different if anything in her life had changed. If her parents hadn't handed her over to the Black Rose, if she hadn't discovered the truth about the school, or if she'd been shown a sliver of love. But that's not what happened. And while Rell won't dwell on the past, that doesn't mean she can't find a little joy in the life she has now. The first thing I thought of when I heard of Rell was a teenager and had a mount was a coin-operated horse ride. Like the ones outside of grocery stores, recall Dave Helsby. I've seen teenagers ride them a lot, and it's so interesting because you see a person on the cusp of being an adult, but still a bit of a kid in them. I just feel like that made sense for Rell. She has a lot of adult responsibility on her shoulders, but she's still a kid, and she deserves a little fun. Quite honestly, sounds amazing. And yeah, like I hope this is an actual animation that's inside the game. I'm pretty sure it is. And if it is, it's just... Thank you, right? Thank you. Okay. Oh, that was not on purpose. Let me just go back here. Make sure. All right. So let's go ahead and check out her abilities right here. All right. So Rell abilities rundown. So bend the enemy's armor and break through their lines with Rell, the Iron Maiden. Learn more about her middle manting abilities below. All right, so first let's just check this one out. I want my sound on as well. Let me just grab my headset here and let's have a look. So this is her passive. So let's see if we can see what it actually does. So it gives some armor breaking thing here. All right, let's check. What does it say? Passive, break the mold. Rell attacks very slowly, but temporarily steals a portion of her target's armor and magic resist to deal bonus damage based on the stolen amount. Additionally, Rell can siphon resistance from multiple different foes to grow extremely tanky. Oh, that is very interesting. So with Rell, I guess what you kind of want to try and do is hit as many targets as possible, or as many different targets, to get as much resistance as possible in order to become the super tank. I think for the next ability, we'll read it first and then we'll have a look at how it actually looks. So, Shattering Strike. Rell steps forward with her lance, breaking any shield and damaging all enemies hit. Damage decreases after the first target. If Rell has an ally bound with E, with her E, attract and repel, she and that ally recover health for each champion hit by this ability. Okay, so it has some kind of healing thing you can do with her Q, which works, I guess, really well together with the other one. I'm a little in doubt whether or not if her passive, if that one hits more than one target, I do think it applies the, because it says the passive says Rell's attacks. I'm guessing that her Q, if her Q hits more than one target, she does steal armor from any target that it hits. But you do less damage to anything after the first target. Anyway, let's check out how this attack looks. Okay, that's pretty cool. It looks a lot like Jarvan's spear throw, right? It's kind of similar, especially the animation with like going forward. It's somewhat, I guess we're in that proximity of things. But I love the animation here of how it actually goes forward, and you can see this spear basically almost kind of tearing half apart when she does it and then reassembling. It looks really cool. All right, so that's a cool one. All right, or her next ability. Jesus Christ, this one looks a little more fancy. All right, so her W called Ferromancy Crashdown apparently has two I guess things. I guess it's either looking at the name, the first one called Crashdown and the other one called Mount Up is probably the way, or her ability to change between being mounted and being on foot. So let's kind of have it, like, just read it through. So W1, Ferromancy Crashdown, can only be cast while mounted. Yeah, we're kind of right on this one. Rell leaps into the sky and transforms her mount into a heavy armor, gaining a huge shield that lasts until destroyed or remounting. So this is pretty cool. So her mount doesn't just go away, it literally attaches to her as an armor. That's freaking cool. Upon landing, she knocks up all enemies around her. Rell can cast E, Attract, Repel, and Magnetic Storm during the transformation. Well, kind of as we learn those abilities, that's gonna be, I think it's gonna be pretty interesting. But super cool that upon landing, so you run in there with the mount on, and when you use this crash down, then you knock up anything, and this will work together with like Yasuo ult and everything. It's really cool. I think she'll have great synergy with Yasuo, to be honest. All right, Rell has increased durability, low movement speed, and a movement speed cap while in armor form. After the transformation, this ability changes to Ferromancy Mount Up. All right, so let's have a look at that one. So W2 is your Ferromancy Mount Up. This is when you are walking on the ground. So in order to get mounted again, can only be cast while in armored form. Rell rushes forward and transforms her armor into a mount, gaining a burst of movement speed. During her attack, her next attack, she charges her target to deal bonus damage and flip them over her shoulder. That is freaking cool. That's kind of like Singed with throwing people over his head. That's really cool. Rell has increased movement speed while mounted. After the transformation, this ability changes to Ferromancy, Crash Down, as we know. All right, let's kind of have a look here and see what it actually looks like. So first we have it with the Crash Down where she unmounts, I guess. Boom. That is very cool. And we can see how she walks around. This is very, very cool. Just see it one more time here. So mounting up, run into them, and she flips them over. I actually really like that. So it's somewhat similar. It flips them over and stuns them. That's insane. All right. Very interesting. I think she's going to have a lot of good ganking potential, to be honest. All right. Let's look at her E. Attract and repel. Rell magnetically binds... let me just pause this. Rell magnetically binds a piece of armor to her target ally champion, granting them bonus armor and magic resist while nearby. Rell can recast this spell to break the bind and stun all enemies around and between her and her bound ally. That's insane. This is really, really cool. I think this is a really, really nice ability. So pop it on there. She can she recast it whenever? So it stuns between. I wonder how long this bind lasts. Can she rebind it to someone else? Does it say? To a target ally, granting them. I think you can recast it on other targets as well. I think that, of course, otherwise it wouldn't make. I'm not sure. Either it's like that, or she binds permanently, just like Callista's spear, etc. But I'm not sure. I guess this is something we'll figure out once we get to try her. All right, let's have a look at her ult. Her ult is called Magnetic Storm. Rell erupts in magnetic fury, yanking nearby enemies towards her. She then creates a gravitational field around her, pulling nearby enemies in for a few seconds. The field doesn't interrupt her enemies' other actions. All right, so this is pretty cool. She just basically yanks them to her. Let's try and see what it actually looks like in action, how big this gravitational pull is. Oh, she can track them. This is kind of like Skarner. But if it's AoE and hits multiple, and this is like Skarner, but I wouldn't say better, because I guess the difference between this and Skarner would be that when Skarner does it, your target cannot do anything, but as the ability states, then there's like it won't interrupt whatever they're doing. But this is really cool. All right, so I think that's kind of, let's check should we go through the champion bio as well? We were just gonna read this page real quick. So we can see related champions LeBlanc and Samira. That's pretty cool. And it says here that she is supposed to be the support role. Okay, the full biography is super long. Should we go through it real quick? I think we will. I really like this. So let's just go through it really quick. I'll try and read through it as fast as I can. So Rell the Iron Maiden. Posters across Noxious warn of a dangerous criminal armed with a massive blunted spear and borne atop a magical fiend whose mere existence poses a threat to the safety and security of the entire nation. Ooh. Even some within the steeled ranks of the Terrifian Legion have begun to worry that they will be sent after her to their almost certain deaths. What kind of monster could be behind such heinous, unchecked destruction? The simple answer is a 16-year-old girl. The complicated one is unforgivable. Rell was special from the moment of her birth and fated to suffer for it. Born the daughter of Noxian foot soldiers and their heir to the fallen noble house, she enjoyed neither the trappings of wealth nor the gilded upbringing common to children of the lower how do you pronounce that? Aristocracy. I'm sorry if I completely messed that up. Nevertheless, her parents had granted plans to mold her into someone who could shatter through Noxious dense dense political landscape. As Rell's mother always says, excellence is measured in sacrifice. Rell's unhappiness grew with time, sparking something unique within her, a magic unlike anything seen in centuries. The ability to manipulate metal. To Rell's parents, this was something to be exploited. For Rell's own sake, of course. And they tried unsuccessfully to apprentice her with many powerful mages who might whisk their daughter into the political or military elite. But someone else took notice of the young girl's magic, seeing in Rell a weapon who could one day face Noxious' most hated, ancient, and certain pale woman visit the family with a dark bargain. Rell soon found herself the star pupil of a very special academy, hidden far from the capital and away from the council's prying eyes. And though they rarely made appearances in her boarding school, her mother and father never seemed more proud or more hopeful of their daughter's future. It seemed, at least for a moment, that perhaps Rell would be loved after all. Then the true horrors came. Rell was first forced into combat with another student when she was 8, and afterward, a kind of magic sigil was painfully graded into her arm, amplifying her powers so that she could become even stronger. Yet, while this had been framed as a training exercise, Rell never saw the boy again. She never saw any of her opponents again. Every day she grew more powerful, honing her magic for martial combat. Her body became covered with sigils that amplified her magical abilities to impossible heights. In time, she could rip a vein off a raw ore from deepest out of the ground, twist the walls into deadly weapons, and superheat an opponent's armor until it collapsed and crushed them. This is really badass. But her instructors desired even more from her, all in the hopes that Rell would be the most powerful soldier the Empire had ever known. On her 16th birthday, after a particularly barbaric duel, she'd finally had enough. Casting her instructors aside, Rell tore past the guards and ripped open the doors of a forbidden wing of the academy, discovering the true nature of a school. Every opponent she defeated had been nullified, their magic forcibly extracted from them and placed into the very sigil covering Rell's body, and left as an emotionless puppet devoid of memories. This was the price of her power, and she could never give it back. Worst of all was the headmistress, who oversaw the procedures herself, Rell's own mother. All of this had been for Rell, she said. After all, excellence is measured in sacrifice. Rell raged. To the small handful of faculty who survived her escape from the academy, it was like the earth had been torn into a twisting whirlwind of razor-sharp slack. The building ripped itself apart, forming an impenetrable suit of black armor around Rell as she crushed those who stood before her, flattening seasoned soldiers with a lance heavier than a mountain. Bursting through the front gate on a steed made of rippling iron, she led as many of her classmates as she could to freedom, leaving the rows scrambling to recover the knoll and erase any trace of what the organization had done. But it was far too late. Soon enough, the surviving faculty members began to die in increasingly public ways, and the knoll could no longer be kept secret. Rell is now a threat to Noxus, but not in the way the handbills proclaimed. She is a self-styled defender of the meek, full of unchecked fury, distrustful of anyone, and merciless toward a government that turned a blind eye to years of suffering and abuse. Not because the Empire was personally responsible, but because they stood by and did nothing. Riding atop her iron steed, Rell's eyes are set on nothing less than the complete destruction of Noxious and saving any children who, like her, survived the Black Rose Academy. And there's nothing in this world that can stop her. God dang. Alright, if I'm not hyped for this champion, or if I wasn't before this, I am super hyped after this this backstory and biography, and just seeing how everything was created from the idea of like what kind of champion they were making to actually constructing her and putting it all together in the story. Like, honestly, I'm hooked. I think this is amazing. Like, I would read a full story like on this if they made like a book or something just about Rell. I think she has an amazing backstory. I think it's cool. Anyway, if you guys are hyped for Rell, make sure to smash that like button. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video and aren't already subscribed, come on, what are you doing? Just click it. Subscribe down below. If you want to see me live, make sure to go follow me on twitch.tv/MipZ_live. I'm gonna streaming in there every Friday, and yeah, sometimes also a couple of extra days during the week. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys are somewhat hyped for this champion just like I am. But yeah, that's gonna be everything. As always, stay awesome, have fun, and take it easy, guys.